I'm Cy King, and you're tuning in to The Pie Eating Man on Chewing the Crust podcast. It's a belter.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Chewing the Crust with the Pie Eating Man. Now, today's episode is a really special one. It's not because I've got a new microphone, as people might be thinking. It's actually because it marks 1 full year since I started on this slightly mad podcast adventure. So that's an exciting thing for me. And as you know, my rules are if I enjoy it, I'm helping somebody, and I'm doing no harm, then I'll carry on doing it. And that's where I'm at. So this podcast was built on the simple idea that ordinary people with extraordinary moments have stories that we can all share and take something away from. Over the past year, we've spoken to people who faced incredible challenges, made huge life pivots, and reminded us that kindness, humor, and honesty still matter. Today's guest embodies all of that. Many of you will know him from the Hairy Bikers, where for years he and Dave Myers rode across the world sharing laughter and one of the most genuine friendships, I think, on television. What I think really stayed with people wasn't just the miles on the bikes or the food on the table, it was the warmth, the loyalty, the vulnerability, and the reminder that blokes are allowed to care deeply about each other and not be embarrassed about that. So I first met today's guest at Carfest, where he kindly gave me, a slightly overexcited pie-eating man, a few minutes of his time whilst chatting over a wheelie bin. And the last time I saw him after that, he had his bongos out on stage. So he accepted a copy of my book, The Pie-Eating Man's Guide to a Healthy Mind. He's humble, generous with his time, and exactly as down to earth in real life as he appears on the television. So settle down, grab a brew, maybe a slice of pie, and let's have a chat with Cy King. Good morning, Cy.
Good morning, Mark. What an introduction, dear God. I'm gonna have to pull my socks up on that.
Well, that's only the beginning. I've done quite a lot of poems over the last year for the guests, and probably 3 of them have been very difficult. This has been one of them. Um, and it's usually for the same reason, although this one slightly different, but anyway. It's called No Distance Between Them. 2 lads on bikes rode side by side, with laughter, good food, and friendship to guide. Neither were gambling men by design, yet fate rolled the dice and their stars aligned. Through countries and towns the miles would fly, 600,000 of them rolling by. With kindness and humour in plentiful supply, adventures and stories that money can't buy. One biker rides on with the hearts of 2, sharing the stories those brothers knew. So let's chew the crust with the Pie King. Please welcome the one and only Super Cy King.
Yeah. Oh, that is gorgeous. You're clever, man. You're clever, man. There's a Fort Laurier in there somewhere, I'm telling you.
You're welcome. It was actually a pleasure to write, but there's heavy bits, isn't there? There's heavy bits in life, and this podcast is about heavy bits and how we deal with them and how we help people through their heavy bits. So hopefully that's what the poems try and do a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, life is about light and shade, isn't it? That's what it is, because I mean, there's sadly in the world that we live in at the minute, there's not too many people seeing much light, because there is a blanket of darkness that kind of seems to surround the world at the moment, which is not great, and it's up to people like you and me, who bring a little bit of light into, and a little bit of laughter and a little bit of kindness and a little bit of love and a little bit of empathy and a little bit of tolerance to stand up and say enough's enough. I think it's definitely at that point.
I agree 100%.
And it's always darkest before the dawn, isn't it? I mean, it's an old Tolkien saying, isn't it? It's always darkest before the dawn.
I really do want to come to that, because one of the things that's repeatedly come up in these chats, because I've spoken to people, particularly, I am very, and I think you might be similar to me because you had a similar upbringing, but I believe. um, I'm very passionate about being an advocate to women. I think the middle class white man in particular have let women down over the past 200 years such a strong degree, and I think I only pick out women in this front because I don't think there's a difference, but there still seems to be a difference in certain worlds and scenarios. But whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's religion, whatever it is, like you've said, I think we men in who are perceived to be in a powerful position have a responsibility to say no to homophobia, no to racism, no to sexism, no to any abuse of humanity, and not be ashamed of that. And it's not easy.
Well, no, it's not easy because you have the internet and you have a cancel culture, and what does that do? That stifles debate. Also, on top of that, you have the entrenchment of positions because of the news feeds that you get. You know, it's a feed. Wow. No, I just want the news, thanks. And I want a broad view. I want a broad view of it, so I can come to my own conclusions. Um, because that's the problem. Algorithms entrench positions because you're only fed what your personal color preference or taste is, and then if you say anything that you think, hold on, well, I don't care whether they're white, whether they're black, and you have to be careful because we're, Western white men in a relatively privileged position.
Mm.
Um, but that doesn't mean to say that we can stifle debate, and it doesn't mean to say that we should. And algorithms do that very well, I think, and it's a very sad indictment of modern society. I think it's not a healthy way to proceed because fundamentally what it is, I use I call it the velvet. It's a velvet mugging because actually what they're doing is it's all about getting the money out of your pocket that you've earned quite hot, and it's taken a long time to earn. You know, it's about consumerism and about consumption and what can we sell on the back of what they do or what they say or how they say it. It's the most remarkable schism that we've arrived at in modern society, I think.
It's very true, and I think the only thing I would say to that is that if you don't invite us to the party, us being that Western white man of a certain age, if you don't invite us to the party, there will be no change because
I think.
unfortunately the people in our shoes are still the creators of destiny, aren't they? And that's the bit we need to change, and we need to make that fairer and more liberal, don't we?
Well, more equitable, certainly. I mean, you've got
Mm,
parts of the United States of America now that are proffering well, and other parts of the world with that sort of mindset that are proffering that the vote is taken away from women, and that it is it is at the behest of their husbands to say whether they can vote or not and what to vote. I mean,
it's
that's
hard to believe those words are coming out of people's mouths at this time in this world that we live in, isn't it?
26 in the United States of America. Absolutely.
Crazy, crazy.
Well, there we are.
But yeah, so let me just get rid of this because I've got something else I'd like to say to you, and I've written it down so I get it right. So here we go. Bit too late for this one. Before we get into anything serious,
Famous.
uh, but yeah, no. So before we get into anything serious, I should like to start by saying thank you to you for trusting a complete stranger who walked up to you in a field and insisted that you tried his wife's banana and walnut cake, which thankfully you seem to enjoy. Yeah, it was good. Um, but because of that, my household have made you an excellent man of judgment. So that's a good start. But what I did really notice on that day, and not just to me, I watched you because I'm a people watcher, and I'm not a psychopath. It sounds a bit like I'm a psychopath, but it was. I watched you doing your thing as you watch other people doing their thing, but I noticed how particularly kind you are, not just to me, but to everybody around you, to the people who were there, who were helping you, to the public who came over to speak to you. You are one of those very rare people who simply put smiles on faces of people who come into contact with you. Um, and I know that that can be an embarrassing thing to say, and I don't expect you to respond, but it's true. And I would be interested to know, do you get that from somewhere? Is that from your upbringing, from your mum?
Oh, good grief, Mark. Mm, I think it is. Yeah, it is. Of course, it is, because the reality is that how you're raised is how it. There's not one simple answer to that. I don't think. I think that yes, it is definitely from a mum, but it's also from the ethos of the household that I was brought up in. It was a working class, and quite, mum and I were poor because my dad died. My dad died when I was 8. My mum was 42 when she had me, so it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best in the mid 70s. It was tough.
And in a mining area.
Yeah, and it was, and we lived on an estate, and the community on that estate has definitely shaped me for sure, and Kibblesworth as well, because you carry your community with you, and I think it's at the heart of everything that I do. Community, really, because and I'm fiercely protective, not just about my community in the Northeast but the wider community generally, because it's important. Because no man is formed and no woman is formed by the family alone. They're formed by the village. They're formed by their town. They're formed by their city, their
Mm,
topography, their culture, the place, the space, the light, the you know, and it's just, sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. But I think partly because my dad had such a horrendous war, and he was instrumental in the German exchanges after the war, which was a program of ex-combatants that said that this should never happen again. So they took the bull by the horns, and with some help as well from central government and local government, my sister and my brother went off to families in Germany, and not a lot of people know about the German exchanges. It's funny because it was
I
so
don't know
important.
about this.
So what happened post-war is my brother and sister, because they were of that age, was a lot older than me, went off to Germany, to German families, to understand the culture of German families, because they were just like us.
Mm.
And then German kids would come over and stay with my mom and dad, and it was before I was born, but it left an enormous, and just, it was a working class household. It wasn't those middle class white men that you were talking about. There was
Mm.
some of that. There was a lot of officers involved in it as well, but um, and it was about a whole sense and movement of that it should never happen again. Because my dad always used to say that, look, never let anybody tell you that there's any glory in war.
Mm.
He said, because they're lying to you. Because it's utter terror from the minute that you wake up to the minute that you go to sleep, if you
Mm.
can get any. Because you're so terrified, and it's blood, it's muck, it's bullets and terror.
Sweat and stink and cold and misery
Yeah. And my dad,
and young kids.
well, off you go, off you go. We're not going to fight. We're just going to tell you what we're going to do. Whether you can serve your country, well, mostly it's drawn from the working classes. And then what we'll do is we'll send you there and we'll start, yeah, go on, just get, there's a whole mad ethos around war. Well, I tell you what we'll do is we'll get you in an arena, we'll put some trees in there, and you can have a couple of guns. You shoot, your ideologies I tell you what you do. You sort that out in that arena. We'll get yours. We'll bus you all in and dump you in a place that you don't know with a culture that you've never come across before, and then you're told to shoot people. Crack on, and then you can follow our orders. So that was the culture that I was brought up in. That it was that you treat the world that you live in and the people that you come up with an open hand and an open heart. Because if you treat it with a clenched fist and a closed heart, that's normally what you'll be in receipt of.
That was a very intelligent place to be for a man who had fought in the war in that era. You know, the ability to not buy into the rhetoric. That's very intelligent and or open-minded or wise maybe.
Well, I think that the reality was that Dad was on the convoys, as I said, and you know it was, and I mean, actually, his time there was what eventually killed him. But I think you know, Dad understood that there was a fascist uh, power that was, you know, so there was a there was a reason, because my dad was a committed socialist and had been for all his life. You know, he was a Londoner from Lambeth. He was born in the sound of the Bow Bells. He was a bit of an exotic creature in a pit village, you know. So he was,
Sounds like it.
and he was, yeah. And my dad and my mum met as my mum was singing and dancing at the Oxford, which was a club in Newcastle during the war. And the rest, as they say, is history. And Dad came up because he'd lost everything. His community had been bombed, and he'd lost his mother in that blitz. In the blitz, so he turned around, went to his commissioning officer. They said, "Right, get on a train and get yourself away up to Newcastle and to join." And I think it was HMS Kellet, which was a minesweeper. And he joined Kellett and then went on to Sheffield and all sorts of. So anywhere that you didn't want to be in the Second World War, floating about in a boat, me dad in a ship, me dad was. He was just one of those men. Um, and I think as well, when you know, my brother and sister, they went off and, you know, was getting on with their lives. So that left Mum and I alone at home. So you felt that weight of responsibility as the kind of, you know, and my mother was an amazing parent, and you felt that weight of responsibility inevitably because you're the man in the house, and we were skint. And it wasn't that my brother and sister didn't help; they were just doing other stuff. And so yeah, I think that I mean, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but to put it in context, very much so, because people are important, and particularly when you're in my position where you know, there was two daft lads riding around the world on motorcycles, you know, and being two ordinary blokes in extraordinary circumstances was an enormous privilege. So you take that privilege, as you should, with kindness and tolerance and understanding. And it's understanding that people are, you know, the people that come up are absolutely lovely, you know, and we have a crack on and a laugh, and it's and if life's not about that, I never understand the celebrity thing, because I first of all, I hate being called a celebrity or anything like that. It really makes me hyperventilate. I'm like, what? Hold on. And it's like that. Oh, look at me, leave me alone, leave me alone. Look at me, leave me alone. Oh, do off.
Yeah.
What is all that about? You know,
Alex Ferguson had it right when he told, because those players who got off the bus and ignored the fans, he got them to get back on the bus, and he said, "You, as long as you play for Man United, you never ever turn down an autograph, a photograph, or a hello to somebody because they remember who put you where you are."
exactly, exactly, because they pay your wages.
Mm.
And I mean, at the very base level, they pay your wages. But why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you want to do that? It's an absolute pleasure.
I do understand. Well, I don't understand. I do understand what I don't understand, which is, uh, it must be difficult, certainly at the beginning. I know you've done it a long time now, but it must be difficult when people come up to you, and I'm absolutely uh, one for doing this and speaking to people like you in a way that we know you because we do know you. You just don't. We forget you don't know us.
Well, there is that, yeah, but how lovely is that? You know, more people know you than you know them.
Mm.
Well, then given the opportunity, I now know you, and I didn't know you before.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not
Yeah.
it's a lovely. I don't know. That's just isn't that what life is about? I don't. I
Yeah,
guess.
that I think you're in a nice position in that I don't think you've ever done anything controversial, really. The nature of your work is highly positive and kind, and it's very gone fishing before gone fishing, isn't it? And I think it's hard to have an axe to grind with you, so that's a nice thing for you as well. That genuinely, no one's going to come and give you a hard time, are they?
Well, some have that don't like that, that don't, and it takes all sorts to make a world, Mark. That they had, or they thought they had an understanding of that we were slightly, that we were very liberal, and that we were, and liberal in this in the way that, look, whatever gets you through the night, man. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Human.
yeah, you know. Well, look, I ain't got any ass to grind. I don't care what you, whatever. I do care what you do. If you incite hatred and violence, that's not on. And I think there was some folk that understood that what we were actually proffering was a mindset of tolerance and empathy, and quite big bits of uh, social history, given around the world, given by humor. And normally social history for normal people is about, uh, well, it's about a struggle, isn't it? So
Mm.
you would have those conversations, and then obviously if it made the editorial, and we could get it, I could get it past the BBC commission. I'm just saying, when we first started our career, the stuff that we got away with then, and what we got away with at the end of this stuff, we were like, yeah, tell you what, it's like we've been rubbed over with domestos. It was pretty clean, and
It's funny though because I was walking the dog this morning and I've written a load of questions, and what normally happens is I end up chatting with people. I ask question one and then I just talk to people. So, but one of the things I was thinking to myself was somewhere somehow when you're with your mates, your best mates like you and Dave, there are a few people that you can laugh with like that. You know, that belly laugh where you can't breathe for 5 minutes because something happens. That's it can't be manufactured, and there are only certain people you get to do that with. I reckon there are some absolute killer outtakes that perhaps could make a YouTube channel on their own of you, given how much time you spent together and how close you were.
well, I think the thing is, well, that you have to have, part of the problem is that if you, when you're working for the BB, you sign away your life in perpetuity. So I will never get my hands on those. That, my goodness, I wish we could. I was talking to somebody the other day about trying to buy the back catalogue of the Hairy Bikers, from the distributors and the BB and blah 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 blah. Oh dear me! I tell you what, I think I might start a crowdfunding thing so we can get all of the rushes back and try. Because, I mean, it's a significant amount of money. I thought, "Hold on a minute, how was it a significant amount of money? It was all our idea." Do you know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
how am I paying for my idea and Dave's idea? How is that? What?
Yeah.
But there you go. That's the media industry for you. So there was some absolute cause. Well, look, that sort of belly laugh and that sort of daftness comes from a place of knowledge. You have to
Mm.
know each other really well, and and like I said, at Dave's eulogy, there was two. We'd ridden 650,000 miles over 23 years. Gratis, mental. That's not flights. That's not thingy. That's saddle time.
Do you know how many countries you went to? Because I
Uh,
was trying to work it out and I couldn't.
5.5. It's basically 5 times around the world. Well, round, up, down, across, through, in the.
I bet you've been through some passports, haven't you?
Aye, and we had to get two because what we'd be filming one place, and then they'd have to
Yeah.
send another passport off to get your visa, you know. And at that time, because it was an interesting place to be, we were in the States quite a lot, you know. And uh and that was that that was mad, you know. Mad place. Great people, but absolutely stark raving bunters. They were all
Before you did the Hairy Bikers, though, you did a bit of chauffeuring, didn't you?
No, well, I've done all sorts, Mark, but,
Well, I thought you did some chauffeuring, for a couple of, upstarts in Newcastle, in your Red Sierra.
I did, yes, I was a production runner for so what happened was I used to work I was a musician, and I started to learn, yeah, my craft is playing drums with, in the pubs and clubs around the Northeast, which are notoriously, you know, they're tough places to play. And, and if you shit, they'll tell you, you know, so, and, anyway, to cut a long story short, I was working with, these kids in from grade A and B priority areas, so, they were really underprivileged areas in and around Newcastle, so we'd get them all in a studio, and we'd get all these kids going on, would give them cameras, and they could go into the studio and make music, and even if you hadn't played anything before, you would just so I was doing that quite a lot, as well as supplementing my mom's widow's pension and our wages from Purse Care with session work. So they'd come in, and I had the ability to read. I've lost it now. A score and go, all right, okay, I can do that. And and then and then there was a bit of a lull at the end of the summer, and a mate of my sister said, "Yeah, do you want to drive a bus for this student film at Northeast Media Training Centre?" And I was like, all right, yeah. So anyway, I started to drive this bus, and then as I was there on the notice board, I saw children's drama series starting in Newcastle. The pilot episodes, runners wanted. So I looked around and saw anybody was up the corridor, and I went and I nicked it and stuffed it in my pocket. And then I applied for the job, and because of the work that I'd done for 2 or 3 years with the kids, Matthew Robinson, who was the exec then and producer, said, yeah, you can have a job. So I remember ringing my mum up going, shit, I've got a job with BBC. It was like, what? I said, I know. Anyway, so, and I got a job with a Beeb, uh, and then there was, and I was a runner on these first two pilot shows. And that show was Biker Grove. And then, I was, and because I had got my girlfriend pregnant, I had to hustle. So I'd won it, and it was a bad, bad decision. So one block of filming, I needed a continuity of work because we needed stuff like cots and nappies, and like I needed to keep the heating on all the time in the house, and I needed the fridge full, and it was just like, ah.
You had to become a grown up.
Oh my God, like overnight I was shitting my pants. And I thought, Christ, okay, what am I gonna do now? Oh no. So anyway, so what I did was so I could get a continuity of work, although the wages were hugely different. There would be one block of filming that I was the first assistant director because Matthew Robinson took a real punt on me and said, what do you want to do? And I went, oh, I want his job, not knowing what it
Mm.
was first assistant directors. And it's like playing chess, scheduling children's show, because they all need to go off and go to school. They all need to have tutoring. They all need to have breaks. You can't start them before 10 o'clock. You can't start them. It was an absolute nightmare and a difficult, but I cut my teeth in scheduling that way. But then the next block of filming, I'd be the runner. right? So I'd go from first assistant director
I see.
because I just needed the money. So so then what? And then there was me and a bloke called Griff, and we never really got on. Still to this day don't know why. Well, I think we found each other highly irritating. Um, uh, I went off to do to pick uh, Anthony McParlin up, and he'd pick Deck up. So there was this. So and then we'd swap. I'd go and pick Ant up, and I'd go and pick Deck up, and then sometimes I had to pick them both up. Bring them into the studio, get them through costume and makeup, and ready for the set. So, in answer to your question, that was Ant and Dec from Biker Grove back in the day when they were like tiny tots and still giggling in the back of cars eating jelly tots.
It's funny because one of the things I've been trying hard to do, and it's really hard when you're someone as well known as you, I've been trying to find nuggets, little nuggets of things that I wanted to ask you to see. You thought, how the hell did you know that? Because a lot of the people I speak to, they're people that you would walk past in the street and not know. So that's a little bit different. But I was what Ant and Dec have got a podcast that they've just started, and episode 1 or 2, they said it. I was like, yes! And it was about 4 weeks ago. I was like, brilliant! And they even described your Red Sierra, so I thought, brilliant, I'm having that one.
Well, they're good lads. I've got a lot of time for them now. They're good lads.
Do you see them from time to time?
I only at like those big ceremonies and stuff. They're they're lovely lads that quite genuine, great friendship. They've stuck together with each other through thick and thin. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy for them because that echelon of the entertainment industry is a bit bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, they are the height of their game, aren't they? They are.
Yeah.
And I think it's different. The only person I can think of, or the two people I can think of, really that would be of an equivalent from my point of view. Claudia's probably getting there, but it's Chris Evans who's done it forever, and Terry Wogan. They are of that ilk, aren't they? They are what we would term as a national treasure, and known, maybe not known necessarily overseas, but certainly known by everybody here.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. That's the sweet national treasure, isn't it? Because it's one of those terms so that you just feel like I remember watching this interview that Louis Theroux did, I think,
Uh,
with with Dame Judi Dench, and she said, well, yeah, yeah, so people keep calling me a national treasure, and the thing is that it just seems like you're taken out of a cupboard, dusted off, and then put in front of something. I don't like it. And I was like, oh yeah, 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 just taken out of a cupboard and dusted off. It sounds a bit.
One of the things you've talked about, and it sort of moves into your next category of work, but it is how your dad died when you were very young, and I mean the thing I do find interesting. I've heard you tell the story about your dad bringing all the herbs and spices from across the world, and your mum, thinking, for God's sake, can you stop bringing people around for a curry, please, because I can't afford it. But because it was the 70s, and nobody had ever seen a piece of star anise before. But yeah, you also go on to talk about how you felt that you and your mum dealt with difficulty through the comfort of food, and that's something I relate to as well. Growing up, my mum was on her own, and certainly birthdays were built around special teas, and Fridays and Saturdays she would make an extra effort because we were together as a family and the telly was on. And so my mum considers herself to be a not great cook, but the food that she gave us was amazing. She made Chinese food when people weren't eating Chinese food. She made pizzas when people weren't eating pizzas, and that that took balls because she couldn't just go to the takeaway.
I think that's very true, Mark. Because the thing is that the whole thing about I think there were women of a certain generation. My man was born in 1922.
Can I just say, for my own safety, my mum is not comparable in age to your mum. She was much, much younger and still is much, much younger. So, because I still fear her.
she'll, yeah, good lad. And so you should. If you've stopped being frightened of your mum, then there's something sadly wrong. So
Exactly.
I think the way that the what I think my mum was one of those women, and a woman of her generation that she left school. Well, she was taken out of school at kind of 12, I think, because she was needed by my grandmother Nancy to help fill baths for miners on the varying shifts, because not everybody had a tin bath in those days. It was, you had bath houses and you would go around everybody's house at the end of the shift
Wow.
and get a bath and, all that sort of stuff. And my mum was fiercely bright, incredibly engaged in the world that she lived in, albeit that, and refused to, 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 to be defined by the place and space that she lived in. Loved it, was part of a community, but always had a broad view of the world.
Mm.
Partly due to my dad's influence as well with that. But and I think she was one of those. She was a product of her time, in the sense that, as a lot of women were, that were completely unfulfilled. And um and the way that my mum showed her love and care and intellect and creativity was through debate with the family, but also through, and most importantly, through food.
Oh.
And when Dad used to bring, she always used to say, I mean, after my dad had died, she always used to say, I used to get the she said, it was bloody irritating. So, and I said, well, what was the crack like, Mum? And she said, well, she said, all the other sailors' wives, because he was in the merchant service for a good long time, I was saying. And I'm saying, I know, Mum. He said, all the other sailors' wives would get dodgy nylons and knock off Chanel. She said, all I got was bloody leaves, twigs, and sticks. And she said she said, well, he said, and then what we mom said, she said, she said to me, Dad, well, listen, if you're going to bring this, you're going to have to bloody work out where you had it and what you had it in. So, so you'll have to get that, you'll have to start to write it down. So my dad would come back with notes going, Stella, I had this in Shanghai and it was with beef and it's this. What? So my mum would go, and there was no reference then. You had Mrs. Beaton's Good Housekeeping book, and that was it.
Yeah. They
And
taught you to thicken gravy, and that was about it. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Well, there was no like, oh, just get on Google, ask the old seeing eye, what's going on. And that's how it was. And I think that, Mum was a product of a generation, because there was a lot of women in Mum's position that were fiercely bright, but the male skewed society at the time didn't value women in any way, shape, or form being educated or valued. Well, certainly outside the home. There was a few exceptions, but not bloody many. And those exceptions normally came from the upper middle classes and the aristocracy.
Have you ever been able to, on your travels, track down places that your dad went and go there?
Well, it's funny enough, we posthumously, I was involved in, the Remembrance Day celebrations, or for want of a better word, about the Second World War. And I was asked to go down and talk about um, my dad's experiences. And I remember seeing this bloke on the, stood like on the top top brass. And he was a lovely man, very tall, elegant man in his uniform. And as I was being interviewed, this bloke came over and sat down next to us, and I got there. I thought, well, that's smashing. And he said, Mr. King, on behalf of the British people and the Ministry of Defence, I'd like to posthumously award your father the Arctic Star for his service in the Arctic convoys.
And you had no idea that was going to happen?
Absolutely no idea I was on. And I said, well, and I think I said, well, I accept this on behalf of my father and on behalf of the men and women that weren't decorated in such a way. I think on behalf of my family. So thank you very much. And oh my God, it was a killer. And And then, and he said, "Look, Si, what I'll do is I'll write a bit of a narrative of your dad's service because we have all the records." And I said, "Yeah." And he looked at me, and I remember him pulling me to one side. And he said, "But I can't tell you everything." And I said, "Well, what for? He was on a ship, wasn't he?" And he said, "Some of the time." And I'm just like, "Well, these war records are like, well, he's like an able seaman, that's what." I was like, and he was a cagey bugger, me dad. And I thought, oh, so obviously, my imagination goes like he's the next action man, you know what I mean? And all of that.
Either that or you've got 15 brothers somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. And I was just like, hold on a minute. So, yeah, I think that would be a really lovely thing to do. That, and actually, I was talking to my best mate Francois Gandolfi, and Francois was the director on and series producer on all of a lot of the Harry Baker shows. And it's been lovely to be able to maintain that connection,
Mm.
because we're a bit like Driftwood, film crews and the blokes in front of the camera or women in front of the camera. But I'm fiercely loyal to my to my crew because they're and literally this all the production companies across the country know that there's absolutely no point me asking me to do anything unless I've got my crew with me because I just won't do it. It's as
Well,
simple as
that's been reflected just recently because you've got this secret project that's going on that, and whether or not it'll be out by the time this gets out, but you've got this secret project going on which is clearly involving that team, and that's been quite a nice thing to follow on Insta to see how passionate you are. Because when you have a workplace, especially in what you do, but you spend a serious amount of time with these people, so much so that they do become your family, and especially what you were doing, which is 24 hours a day. You were out and about and sleeping in hotels and all over the world, and that, to break that up and just for it to gain dust or separate, like you say, driftwood, would be such a terribly sad thing.
no, we can't. You can't because that's what life's about. Life's about those, life is about the light and dark of relationships, isn't it? You don't know what a good one is until you've had one, and you don't
Mm.
until you've had one. And and it's a constant learning, and it's constant knowledge, and we're still, we adore each other, um, and if I'm in a position whereby that I have influence, then that influence is brought to bear, and it's about the people that I love and respect, both as human beings, but also as creative entities. The work ethic, all of that is very, very, very important. As you say, when you're spending that amount of time with people, it's key.
But I think when you are as wholesome a person as you are, and I don't mean that. I think I'm a wholesome person, so I'm not expecting that to be too much flattery. But that's the nature of the being that you are. You wear your heart on your sleeve. You quite. I find that you are who you are wherever you are. Um,
I'm not bright enough to be anybody else, Mark.
Well, that's my thing. I can't lie. I can't remember. I've got not a good enough memory to lie. So I think if you are authentic and you are who you are, I think that instantly attracts people. Well, no, it builds relationships much stronger. There's no two ways about that because you see people not doing that and it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work. And it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes compromise. But once you're there, you're there, and you'd be mad to let that go. So, and it's also, isn't it? Though, it's about integrity, and it's about being genuine, and and that's part of the distress, I think, and the stress that we have as human beings, as the whole as mankind on the planet that we live now, is that we don't know which way is up and we don't know which way is down, and we don't know who's telling the truth and who's not. And it's just like, well, because yes, truth is relative. My truth may be different to yours, but my mum always used to say, look, is it fair? Is it kind? And is it emotionally equitable? If those three answers are yes, then you will hear that tone, that chime, that bell of truth, because somewhere in there is the truth.
Very true. Very, very, very wise. But I know you've said how intelligent your mum was, and that's a clear example of that, isn't it? But it also shows me, because I watched something last year and you popped up on it, and I wasn't expecting you to pop up on it. To, I don't, I can't say for sure because it might have just been a headshot.
Okay, right, grand.
I would hope so because of the subject matter. But you were talking about the Sycamore Gap, and you were interviewed on that, and those kind of things. I don't expect to go into it too much, but I found it very interesting that you were picked for that because clearly you're very passionate about it, and such mindless behavior as that and actions as that. It's the dichotomy to what your mum is saying there, isn't it? Those people, nobody has said, what are you gaining from such a
So
horrible thing to do?
yeah, and I think what they were hoping to gain from it was, and it's literally this vacuous. They wanted their moment on TikTok or social media channels. That was it.
Mm.
And we did a podcast called Feld, and it's worth listening to. It's a documentary really of it documents the whole process of bringing them to trial basically, and it's called Feld, Felled. It was by local people up in Newcastle that worked for the BBC in the Pink Palace, as we call it. And I think it was the antithesis. You know, I still can't. I find it very difficult to talk about because it was so mindless that it actually shook my faith in in humanity, actually, or certainly a strata of society that must be so lost and so stupid that I felt unequipped, even with the empathy that I have for I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't. It was simply beyond my understanding.
How could somebody's moral compass be so off?
Yeah, in essence, Mark. Yeah, I think that's a really lovely way of putting it. I just I couldn't get my head around it.
No.
And that was the challenging thing about doing and it was a yeah. I just couldn't get my head around it. And why? What for what? What for 30 seconds of all like it's trending, man. It's trending because that's what the recordings were saying. On their phones, and they were really stupid.
Yeah.
Just
Be stupid.
really, really stupid. They had the intellect of a gnat's arse. And
My one of my best friends is actually in the same chambers as the barrister I don't know if it might have even been a QC that took it on, who prosecuted it, um, and and it is just breathtaking. And I would actually like to interview that guy, because he's done some quite interesting cases. But I mean, they made it a walk in the park to some extent, didn't they?
well, yeah, because yeah. I mean, I'm not I'm la- I when I'm laughing at it's not I don't even know what to say about it, Mark.
No.
It 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 was such a and it was from people out of the area. It was from people from Cumbria. You know, abs- it blew my mind. It blew my mind.
So that dichotomy, that feeling compared with the team that you are part of, and how utterly opposite to that the people you work with are your family, your work family. I often call my colleagues work wives and work husbands and whatever, but I'm going to get down to a little bit of nitty gritty here, and it's uncomfortable, but it's one of the things that we need to talk about.
Mm.
I would imagine that because of all of that, because of who you are, to lose Dave as part of that was just devastating.
It was very difficult. It was very difficult because it wasn't. Look, Dave. I think you have to have some context in the sense that, look, Dave and I were were great mates, brothers, all of that, and but very different people with very
Mm.
different drivers. Um, and and I think that's why it worked on screen and off screen. We saw each other, because, as I say, we were mates. We saw each other um outside of work, and dear me, we spent many hours at work together. As you would, and I think that it was so tough for him and his family because there was when Dave was diagnosed, it was all about the fight. It was all about, right, okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. And as a friend, it is incumbent on you to support whatever decision the family has come to, um, and it was literally about that. It was about the fight against this bloody awful disease. But what happens in situations like that is that there is a huge void left by, the Dave's energy and Dave's where
Daftness.
daftness and kind of, childhood inquisitiveness and wonder, and there's all of that. So it's highly nuanced, and I think we all felt. I mean, look, part of the reason that the crew's all still together is because we want to be, but also there is a character like Dave leaves, you know, big gaps for people. It's and the last show we did was incredibly difficult for Dave and incredibly difficult for everybody that was close to him because he definitely wanted to do it. But it was hard because he was very poorly. He was very
Mm.
poorly. Or the reality of actually, and my God, where that man got that energy from to this day is beyond me.
Well, I don't know Dave and didn't know Dave, but I'm quite confident he got it from you and the team and his family and the loved ones. He did it for you. That's where it came from.
I think, yeah, I think he probably did, and there were times during the filming that we would just say, look, that no, no, I want to carry on, I want to carry on, I want to carry on. We're like, dude, this is uh this is clearly causing you a significant amount of discomfort. What do you want to do? No, 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 be all right, man, we'll be all right. We'll carry on. And because he wanted to, there was not, we hadn't been on the bikes for a good while, and yeah, it was just a it's a cruel disease. It really is, and cancer. It is without empathy and without conscience. It's yeah, it was tough. It was tough, and look, grief, Mark, is a funny thing, isn't it? It's 2 years since Dave passed now. On his anniversary of the second year was the 28th of September, February, and it was. It's a funny thing because the first year is you kind of know what to expect. You kind of know that it's going to hit you, and grief is one of those emotions that is necessary, but it's as nuanced as the character and personality that's feeling it. So you have a gamut of emotion, don't you? It's not just one emotion, grief. It's 20, 30.
Yeah, and I think it's nuanced also by the day, what's happening at that moment in the day. So not only your own internal factors, but it's where you are, what the weather's like, what reminds you of them that day or what doesn't remind you of them that day. It's
Mm.
just such this such a myriad of influences, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. Smell, music, food,
Ugh.
environment, the rain. You know, there was an occasion the other day, and I was just sat, and it was pouring with rain where I live. And I was just sat, and he just literally popped in my head, and I was like I was just watching the rain out the window. I had quite a lot to think about, and I often do that, try and focus because I've got a very busy mind. And and I just thought, God, I wonder how many, how many times have I sat with where Dave and I have just sat in the quiet and just looked out the window with the rain at the rain coming in around the world. And then I just started to count them up, Well, it was that time when we were stuck in a tent in Namibia, and it was the first time it had rained in about 180 years. And then there was that time in Vietnam where literally you couldn't go outside because you might as well be in a shower. And then there was that, and I just started to, and then there was that rainstorm that when we were riding across Patagonia, that you were absolutely soaking wet one minute and then red hot the next. Um, and, and, uh, and then there was that time so it was just, it's just little things like that that just come to you on a daily basis. And look, there is I think this year particularly is the big, and when I went to the nearly when I went to the start of the third year of Dave's passing, there is a sense that it's actually I'm glad he's not suffering anymore, but you feel that at the soon after he passed, but then it, that thing that comes into your head, just it feels slightly calmer the more time that has passed. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think the wounds heal, do they? They just get you learn to deal with them, and I think
No, I think they
I th
scar, but they don't.
yes.
I think because that's inevitable. I mean, that's life. I'd rather. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's rather to have loved than lost than not have loved at all. And
100%.
that goes and there are people in our world that haven't loved and haven't been loved and
Uh,
haven't been understood
uh,
and haven't been handled with care and empathy and kindness. There are those people still in in the world that we live in.
and they go down and cut trees down.
Yeah, and that's what happens.
But I think also, they always say that, as you get older, your years fly by, and I think that's because they're a smaller proportion of your life every year. So when you're a little kid, a year is like forever, but uh, uh, in equal measure waters it down. That experience gets watered down over time. So you're sharing the same grief, but perhaps over a longer period, and therefore it's more manageable. But of the handful of people that in my life who I've lost, who um, were very dear to me, I I hope, I think this is a very personal thing. So what I'm saying for me doesn't work for everybody as much as I would encourage people to try and do this. But when those memories come, you you are with them again. Being in the tent in the rain
Yeah.
actually for me is a pleasant thing because you're thinking of the times that you had with them that were nice, where you laughed, where and I think that's the only way to deal with it, isn't it?
Well, I think it's one of them. I think, as you say, there's a myriad of ways with dealing with loss. Um, but there is what, and I mean, again, I think you're absolutely right in your assessment that it is about those memories that pop in. You know, as we get older and a little bit wiser and a little bit more tolerant and a little bit more worldly wise, uh, it is you tend to remember the good times rather than the ones that have been difficult and
Mm,
challenging. Don't you? It's
mm.
just you know, nobody ever go unless it's been horrendous. And sometimes, sometimes it was, because, you don't go around the world 5 times and, there's stuff that Dave and I would see and have seen that we won't be able to unsee,
Mm.
and that's a shared experience, but you remember the good times, you always do, I think. Well, I do, that's just my character and personality.
And I think there's different types of bad times as well. There's what you're saying, which is examples of lifestyles that make you think, "How lucky am I?" But there's also I've heard you describe a scenario in Greece. You're not a man to lose your temper, but you lost your temper. And I'm similar to you. We're big guys, we don't tend to lose our temper, but you know about it when we do. But now, those kind of bad events, you look back and you smile upon a little bit because they become amusing. But other people's hardship is never amusing, is it? But like you say, that I think sometimes some bad memories actually become good memories because you think, oh bloody hell, why did I behave like that? Or what a dickhead, sort of thing.
Oh god, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there's always, but that's life's learning, isn't it? That's the way that that's yeah, that's the way it is.
So on this similar subject, you had your own quite major life pivot in the first sort of 10 years of this century, didn't you? You had an ailment of your own, and I'm interested to how that shaped who you are, because I would think that's helped you to be kind too.
Yeah, I had a brain aneurysm in 2014. Uh, how was it epiphanous? And no, no, it wasn't, because I remember just before I signed literally my life away, to the surgeons, that I was in fit, sound, and mind to make this decision. There was no decision to make. It was
Ugh.
simply, well, but I also remember thinking that, I would leave my sons and Jane in a okay place financially, so that would be okay. So that was something I could rest easy with because it all went to them. Um, and I thought, okay, well, if I have to check out now, then I've had an amazing time. I'm a working class lad from the North Durham coalfield. At that point, I'd been certainly 3 times around the world, riding with my best mate on a motorcycle.
And being paid for it. And I think probably Dave felt similarly, other than he had a younger family, but you have to rationalize those things, right?
Yeah,
You've got to.
you've got to. Yeah, it's just that's the way it was, and that, and I genuinely, it wasn't a Billy Big Bollocks thing. It was just, well, that was the situation I was in, and I wasn't. I don't know. There was a calmness to it, actually. I remember going, oh, well. And I mean, I'm a bit like that anyway. I'm like a bit like, well,
Next.
what? Yeah, what? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm in the shit on a. Yep. Oh, right. Well,
I suppose that goes back to your, I'm having a baby, I need nappies, I need a fridge, I've got
exactly.
to
I mean, it's
fix,
like,
put my
what
finger
else?
in the dike.
Exactly. What else can you do? You know what I mean? It's like, well,
Mm.
I think, and there's a calmness when you arrive at that point, in that place, in that junction, where you go, well, I've got 4 roads here, and I've got flipping clue which one I'm going to, how this is going to end. I don't, but fortunately, the deficit that I was left with and really we don't fully understand what brain injury what it means in terms of fatigue. So every day, I mean, I'm very light of foot in managing it. But that's the deficit that I'm left with. That thank God, because I could have been, I was incredibly, incredibly lucky
Mm.
and blessed, and I felt very blessed and looked after. And I know that word blessed is a thing. Whatever whatever God you are, and whatever faith you have, um, in organized religion or not,
Mhm.
I felt very lucky that that day. Very lucky. And some amazing people, some amazing medics, some kindness and heart, and to be in receipt of that was special. That was epiphanous. But the actual thing itself and how it changed me wasn't. Other than I now just, taking regular nana naps. Right.
Yeah, but I've got no excuse, and I do love a nana nap.
Well, Mark, it's one of those things that's just, you can't, it's mad because you just can't push through it. And if you try to push through it, and my life has been pushing through tiredness and fatigue because, in the film industry, you work 18, 19, 20-hour days, something.
Mm.
And,
And a lot of it is waiting as well, isn't it?
oh yeah, what was it that Hitchcock used to say? He said, "Oh, filming's really interesting." He said it's 80%, 80% doing absolutely nothing, and then 20% frantic activity.
Yeah. So I
Right.
think that sounds like what it's about. One of the things that I mentioned at the beginning, and I I think is very different about when you and Dave were on telly, and when you've been doing stuff, since Dave passed away, is that you both were very happy and comfortable wearing your vulnerabilities on your sleeves. Um, you were never afraid to show care and affection towards each other, which for people of your age and your background and the world that that we live in is unusual. And I often wonder if do you do you realize how powerful that probably was for people watching and perhaps giving them the permission to do the same?
Uh, I don't think it was a conscious. I mean, again, just to give a little bit of context, what you had to get your head around with the bikers was that we were never that analytical about it. We never.
Mm.
We were just who we were, and we didn't see any reason to hide that level of vulnerability and that level of because what what is vulnerability? It's a human emotion, you can hide it, but it'll always come and bite you in the arse. It just will,
Mm.
because you get caught out.
Mm.
And it may not be in a particularly horrible way, but you will get caught out.
Have
So
people ever come to you? We were talking about people who come over to you and they're lovely. And has anyone ever made reference to those things, or has it been done lots of times?
yeah, yeah, people do. Yeah, because that's what a friendship is about.
Mm.
It is about sharing, to have, there's this in the manosphere, I think, as Louis Theroux is just called it, in that manosphere. I've got your back, mate. I've got your back. Well, you can't have anybody's back properly because words are cheap. Words are so cheap. You can't have anybody's back unless you know what their vulnerabilities are.
Mm.
So it's not just about putting your jukes up, because any idiot can do that. What it is actually having your back emotionally. So you don't get to that point. It it so Dave and I had each other's backs because we intrinsically knew each other, and that
Mm.
and to do that is you needed to show how your vulnerability. You know, there was and I think also there was a deep levels. There was levels of insecurity from me and from Dave, partly due to our upbringing. I mean, in very different ways that were you know that we connected with. You know, we kind of understood where it came from in each other. As frustrating as that was on occasion, it you know we kind of got it. We got it, and that's and showing that level of vulnerability and going. I mean, we look at each other and go, "Do you think we're gonna get found out?" Like,
Well, that's interesting. That is really interesting.
oh, it's like we're just having a really good time.
Yeah. Uh,
You know.
Isn't that and did that ever change? Has that because you are a businessman, so there has to be a level of professionality. Was there ever a point where professionality came into it, or were you always relative professional? You just got comfortable, and then you've had to get professional again, or how does that? You must have rules that you're not prepared to do things like that, and you're not prepared to do things like this.
Yeah, so how we used to work it was that we used to say if one of us vehemently went, "I'm not doing that," then we wouldn't do it.
Was there many opportunities like that?
Well, you know what Dave was like, man, he kinda he's like we went over to do Strictly Come he would like he'd gone to the open of a quick if he was like, "Oh, he was like really he was way more up for it than I was, and I'm going, "No," he goes, "Oh, can kick him, man. How are you, man? You'd be brilliant at it." No, no. I'm not. No, I'm not as brave as you. Go if you want to go out and get dressed up in sequins and dance about the place, then crack on. And he comes in, but when we're out on the club, when we're out in the boozer, you're the one that gets up and dances all the thing. I'm going, but I'm not doing it, mate. I'm not stupid. I would shit my pants. He was like, and he was like, and so on that level of things, he was way braver. He was way braver than me. Um, and also, I had I had a family, and I wanted to, there was like it was always going on. I was like, do panto. Let's do panto. You'd make a great giant up a beanstalk. You want to be mint? And I'm just like, no, man. I've got more. I've got me fat. I want to spend. I want to get any time off as it is. I want to spend it with my family when we get do a time off and we get to Christmas. Oh, yeah, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. So it was like, you won't do it. It's no good asking him. You'll not do it. It was so there was all of that sort of stuff going on and all of that dynamic. But yeah, but honestly, the rules were really simple, really, really, really simple because we never, and yeah, we look, yeah, I mean, I don't think we were particularly good businessmen, I have to say, because, I've just tried to buy our back catalogue back and it's three chances of that. It's like, how did we get that much value and not be part of it? What? How did that go? Okay. Uh, and then the lawyers come back and go, you signed it though, you signed it, and you go, oh God. Yeah, it's so
That
frustrating.
yeah. How did that transition happen? Because you both worked together in TV, like doing the Biker Grove stuff and the Shambling Man things, and did how did you get to the point of approaching somebody to commission something?
Well, I remember Dave was at I mean, we were both at the top of our careers as crew. I'd just finished two Harry Potter films, the first two Potter films as one of the location managers. And Dave was Christophe Lambert's personal makeup artist in a film in Toronto. So and I remember sitting down thinking, hold on, I've not had a I'm work. This is a young man's game, this man. I've got a family. What is going on here? I've not had a rise in like 15 years. I'm earning less than a plumber if you break it down.
Oh God.
Uh, what am I doing? So anyway, I sat down and wrote this little treatment, and then it was when emails had just started, so it was a bit like a carrier pigeon thing. So I sent it off to Dave, and Dave loved the idea, and he goes, "Well, I've shown it around a few people, Kingy, and they say it's not shit." Like I said, "All right, great." Uh, and then Dave and I worked on it over a bit, and then we just started to bring in some of the people that we'd worked with, and there was a movement of like, crew, don't make that leap across the void into being in front of camera. And there was loads of people going, "Yeah, we'll like the idea and we'll develop it, but it needs to be celebrity led." And we went, "Nope, we want to do it." And then we found a very lovely man that we'd both worked with before called John Stroud, who was a, a, a Golden Rose of Montreal winner for Spitting Image and all that sort of stuff. So he had a friend called Vikram Jayanti who was part of the team that took when we were Kings. Very Kasparov. He did big heavyweight documentaries. And we wanted that for the bikers, because it was about comedic timing, because of the crack with Dave and I, and being able to cover that and understand that, and also, but there was, social issues by the very nature of who we were. We wanted to touch on through the culture of food,
Yeah.
and the oddities of societies around the world that
Mm.
like.
The very Keith Floyd element of it, isn't it? That's very
Yeah, there was, but just less booze on camera.
yeah, and I think a bit more wholesomeness behind the camera as well.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, he thought we were complete as Keith.
Really?
He hated it. He hated it with a rotten sticky guts. We'd never met him. We didn't know why. We were just doing my thing, you know. And and anyway,
I don't think it was hard to pick him off though, to be fair, was it?
no, well, it never is. Um, and yeah, so it took us 3 years to get it off the ground. There was a lovely man called Rolly Keating, who was then a commissioning editor at the BBC that Vikram and John had worked with before. And off we went. We did a pilot in Portugal. And Nancy Banks Smith said it wasn't so much like a breath of fresh air, it was who blew the bloody doors off. And then my son of the Daily Mirror went, "This is the worst. This is the worst car crash television since El Dorado," which was terrible. And I was like, "This is great." And Dave was like, "They hate us. They hate us." I'm going, "Nancy Banks Smith's just said we blew the bloody doors off, man." Then he was like, "No, they hate us, Kingy. It's all gone horribly wrong." And I was going, "Let's just keep what he's doing, do it." Then we got commissioned for it for 6 episodes across the planet, Namibia and Ireland and Romania, which is where Dave met his wife Lily, and all of that. So it was a lucky strike, and we never looked back really. We were then scheduled for 200 hours of television in a year, over 3 years. That's filming days, not including travel
Oh, okay.
or anything like that. So we were on the road a lot. And that was, yeah, and then things started to get a bit stretched, and yeah, it was an interesting.
Was there ever a transition point where you forgot to think, "Oh my god," like you mentioned, when are we gonna get found out? Because anything I do like that, I mean, just writing the book, worry, when I do this, when I talk to people like you, and I just think, when am I gonna get found out that I don't know. You just do, don't you?
Well, I think it comes from it comes from our upbringing, doesn't it? And it comes from that, like, well, we can't be doing this. Well, why not? That's the answer. That's the question, isn't it? Why not? Because
I do like the punk attitude of podcasts and the ability to now do this from what is an office, but it's a bedroom, really. I do like that it almost goes back to punk, doesn't it? How punk was created, and actually people can say things that go against the algorithm. They might not get very far, but they can.
Mhm. I think it's important that we do, because it's about Look, well, it's about the collection of stories, isn't it? And it's
Mm.
about the collection of experience and the collection of the myriad of life's opportunities and disappointments. It's a wonderful forum. I like it. I like it very much. We did the Agony Uncles, which was bloody hilarious. As a podcast for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Oh God, it was hilarious. We made absolutely no money at all, but it was other than to pay the people around us.
Yeah.
And it was great. But it doesn't take long for Northeasterners to kind of go, just, we're all the same, just in different skins. You know what I mean?
Where does the Northeast start for you?
Oh, I think it's got to start. I mean, it's got to start in Middlesbrough, really. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit further down, and then yeah, yeah, and then up to Berwick, and as far across as Ulster. That's the north for me.
Because I grew up in Hull, so I grew up in a, big merchant navy town as well, like, or city like you did, and I do think there's a tolerance in those places that you perhaps don't get elsewhere, but, um, I Hull kinda doesn't know where it's classed as the north. When you look at it on a map, it's not that north, but equally, it's sometimes, like, it's thrown in with the northeast, and they never knows really quite where it is, Hull. It's a strange place, but
Yeah, it is. And yeah, it is. It's a massive, massive porthole. Huge,
yeah.
huge. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But look, I think the Tyne, the Clyde, the Mersey, parts of the Thames, the Humber, yeah, down to Bristol, any major city that is, or any major community or conurbation that is born of a river, we're all the same, man. We might have different
I think so.
we're just, we're all the same. We're all slightly bonkers and mostly actually, interestingly, quite well traveled, the people from there.
I want to ask you a couple of things. I wanna ask you about proper pies, but, before we get there, I wanna talk to you about your travels, doing the cooking and stuff. Particularly some of the people you met, 'cause, I was thinking about your travel and what your program was about, and I would imagine you have an easy recitable thing of what you think your program was about, but I don't think it was about food, I don't think it was about travel. I actually think it was about people, and and the rest worked backwards from there.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it was about. Because the thing is that look, without any of those things, you can't have any of those things. You can't have food. You can't have culture. It was about the people within their environment,
Mm,
and that creates culture. We're defined by the geography in which we grow up in. Whether we're beach people, whether we're mountain people, whether we're flatlands people, whether we're and there is this tangible difference. And then when you add layers of culture on that is not your own, it becomes really interesting. And then when you do food, it becomes even more interesting. And then when you get into the social history of food, then it becomes even more interesting. So it's
mm.
a bit of a layer cake of of culture of people. I mean, people. That's just amazing. People. We are amazing,
Yeah.
and I think there's been a systematic eradication of going, actually, you're not that amazing. Just shut your mouths and consume what we tell you we want you to. You know, I mean, look, that's a huge, sweeping global statement, but there is a truth in that. Um, that has slightly disempowered the populace of our planet to to be to be slaves to a few.
Believe the rhetoric.
Yeah, and believe that rhetoric. We the people are numerous. They are few.
Mm,
And we have the power to make change. That is one
mhm,
thing that I've learned across my travels across the world, that actually 90% of us are pretty decent. There's 10%,
mm,
like in every echelon of life, are absolute shitbags.
mm.
But mostly we're all right. And we love telling our story.
And I think if you're a good person, and I think if you operate in a good way, you don't need the same language, you don't need the same cultural cues. You can communicate in as particularly if you involve food, you can communicate with one another in probably a more beautiful way. I think I love language difference. I love culture difference. I love anything that isn't me that I perhaps don't understand as well as another person. I want to know. I want to soak that up. And I don't think there's anywhere better to do that than in a kitchen followed by a dining room.
I think that's very true. It's one of the international languages, Mark, definitely, but the other one is music. You know,
Yeah, true.
music. I had the memory of it, and again, an enormous privilege. I sat in as you know, I'm a drummer, and I sat in a Berber drum circle in Mazuga, and wasn't on camera. Everybody had gone to bed. The lads were sat round this massive fire. Uh, uh, and I came out of this caravanserai and they were all there. So one of them handed me a drum and I sat there and played till, I don't know, well into the early hours of the morning.
Wow.
Amazing. Amazing. And that language was that, I mean, I didn't speak Berber. I didn't speak French that well either. So there was two language barriers that were just blown away by music and rhythm
Hedonism, but in its truest sense.
in its truest sense. Yeah, it was just about.
Wow.
It was about, and again, it was about getting a hold of your shyness and vulnerability, and actually just having the courage to sit down because these dudes that you could see that lived their lives like there was the old, there was the new, there was the middles, there was the uninitiated, and then there was a big daft Geordie sat right in the middle of it. Oh, this is good. You know what I mean? So,
But yeah, that is a magic experience. My closest to that, because I'm not a musician, my closest to that is I go scuba diving, and so you dive with someone for an hour who you don't speak the same language. I mean, you speak the same language underwater because you've got hand signals and you've got behavioral things, but then you get invited to eat with them, and you get invited to eat their food at the times they eat, and that to me is the greatest honor, and you must have had that so many times from so many people who, if you look at it on a fiscal point of view, you know, they have nothing, but they will give you everything. And I'd l I'd love to do you have any good examples of that where you were just blown away?
um, yeah, um, we were in a rooftop, um, in Morocco, and Morocco and Namibia spring to mind, and that this woman had made us those. She was fantastic. Mila, I think her name was. I mean, God, it's nearly 30 years ago now, but she made bread. And we were on the rooftop and bread, and she made this amazing uh tagine. And I mean, it was you could see that the house was immaculate, but they were poor. They were a poor family. But the hospitality that they gave us was just, it was unbelievable because it was all heart and soul. It was all, she made bread and she was like saying, "Oh, this is the same bread that that Jesus Christ would have eaten. This is, this is Aramaic, it's from the time, the recipes from the time of the Aramaic land.
Is that what the Egyptians would call shamsi bread, where they rise it in the sun?
It's exactly that. So it's sun.
I'd love to try that.
And it's wonderful. It's it was a wonderful occasion. And the other occasion was when we went through Namibia with the Damara and the Ovangu and the Himba. Amazing people, very little, but my God, their hearts for sharing. And the faith structures, and then there's another one where we went to an antiquarian, Islamic antiquarian bookseller, and we just knocked on the front door because we thought the balcony had a good view of the Mesopotamian plains, and we knocked on the door. This lovely lady, and she said, "Yes, can I help you?" And we're like, "Wow, God, yes. What we'd like to do is cook a doner kebab for me." Well, money about these because you've got a great view of the plains. And she said, "Oh, well, my husband will be home soon. Will you come back then and we can discuss it?" And I said, "Yes, we can." So Dave and I tottled off and went for a cup of mint tea. And then about 4 hours later, we knocked on the door again, and the whole family was there, and we were all sat round on. Took my shoes off, all that. And we sat down and we drank mint tea and we told them what we were doing and they went, "Yes, yes, you can. Yes, you can." And we were like, wow. So we took a load of recce photographs and all that sort of stuff and then sent them off. And then 2 months later, we arrived back with a date and they said, and it was the most amazing, amazing thing because at the time there was a level of demonization and it still goes on to this day about the Muslim culture and about well, we're being overrun by. Whoa, hold on a minute. Whoa. This is utter. The faith network and the faith system. And the thing is uh, that Allah comes to you as a stranger. So every stranger that you meet, you treat with kindness and respect. And if you don't, then not just God will have something to say, but your community also. And every single thing that I have found, both privately and with a film crew, and I can ask all of my, if you asked anybody and put anybody in this seat, we were only ever in receipt of kindness in any of those and all of those cultures, all of them. And I find, and look, there's good and bad in every culture. Dear God, the Western culture has a lot to answer for because we're not, we are not the moral champions of the planet, and the hypocrisy that I hear, it drives me insane because it's not correct, it's a lie, it's not fair, it's not equitable, and it's not kind. And that has been my overwhelming experience of care, empathy, and kindness, whether I've been traveling with a film crew or privately. So you have this rhetoric from, I don't know where these people have been in the world, if anywhere. They're not living in the world that I've lived in.
No, and why do they believe one person and not someone else who can evidence why what they're saying is incorrect? That's the bit I never understand. Why do you? I know why the answer is because you want to believe one person and you don't want to believe the other person. That's the only difference.
Well, it is, but it's because one process of thought is slightly more challenging and may take a broader view than the other. If you've never been anywhere, never seen anything, never done anything, then it's very easy because you're talking about something that you don't know.
Mm.
So then what happens is the liars, the manipulators, the power hungry, the opportunists, they go, oh, well, there's an echelon of people here, not by their own fault, because every human being, I believe, not everyone, but mostly everyone wants to experience the world that they live in. Whether that's in a small way by going on that 2-week holiday every year or whatever, we've all experienced other cultures. And we take ours inevitably, depending on where you come from and what your experiences have been, you take your own with you. Some cultures allow that, some cultures don't. But neither is right or wrong. It's a broader it's a broader bandwidth of thinking. And what I resent is the same streets that I come up with. You've got people that went to Eton and posh schools saying that I'm the voice of the working classes. You are kidding me.
Mm.
And the people like you. You did not come from the streets that I came from. And you have the audacity to play that game. Shocking.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember particularly you visiting a place in Egypt where I think you did have Shamsi bread as well, and they would do it where they pick the saffron from the crocuses, and I loved that episode. And I also remember, because it's somewhere I've always wanted to go, you cooking on the doorstep of Vlad the Impaler's castle.
Yeah. That was a remarkable part of the world, Transylvania. It was very very checkered history, but yeah, occasions like that were just, it was just it's bunga, isn't it?
That must be
Yeah,
pinch yourself time.
Yeah, it was, man. It was just like, and I remember that day because it was so hot. It was so hot that literally we were cooking polenta, and we're cooking, and I was melting. Dave was melting, and I was thinking, and I'm trying not really hard not to sweat into the polenta, because we're feeding a load of people. God.
It's so hot, the tears are running down my legs.
Literally, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Um, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it was that's always a very, very lovely thing to do.
Let's talk proper. My son is a chef, and he works in London. He worked at Padella for quite a while. He's a really, really good pasta chef, and
Yeah, talented lad.
yeah, and done it all himself. I'm so very proud of him because he's literally gone from job to job to gain experience. He's worked in vegan restaurants. He's worked in places like Padella where they've really got him learning proper variations in cookery, and he just adores it. And he's a development chef for Bill's restaurant.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and he started by going to the University of Northumbria, and he lived in some old workhouses near Melbourne Street in Newcastle.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the soup kitchen, but near Swan House roundabout, yeah. I know
Yep,
that.
and a cracking building that is, if you ever get a chance to go in it. But
I visited.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it is a little bit like students in a prison, but probably where they should be. But anyway, and he went to be an environmental health officer because that's kind of my route of work. And he ended up leaving it, and he was always a scientist. He's always mixing up mum's conditioner with shampoo and grass and a bit of dog poo or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, and so he did that, and then he ended up learning to being a chef at a really nice gastro pub on the south coast in Hastings and things like that. But now he's absolutely found his place because it involves the science, the costing, the patience, the trying new things but sticking to rules. And honestly, I love listening to him talk about food because I've always loved food anyway. But I watched, do you know Gary Eats off,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I watched Gary Eats at Proper the other day,
Mhm.
um, and I don't think I've ever seen Gary Eats give a 10 out of 10 for anything, but he was absolutely raving about your pies, and I just sent the video to Jordan, my son, and said, "Next time you're up, we're going here." Normally, Jordan takes about 4.5 days to respond. Within about 3 minutes, I was like, "Yep, definitely."
Oh, yeah. Well, it's Proper's a lovely. It's a it's a funny beast. Because Rory and I, who Rory Welsh, who and the team, Tom Cuthbert and Joey Blythe, that it was the four of us that really kind of kicked it all off, really, in the sense that um, I wanted to do something. I wasn't entirely sure what it was, and then Rory and I got together, and uh, what it came out of an ethos rather than it being a focus on pies. Really, it was the ethos was that wherever we opened and whatever we opened, it was if I couldn't get the ingredients within a 60-mile radius of our location of service,
Mm,
then it didn't get in the kitchen. It was as
mm,
simple as that. Because through experience, what I understood was that and what Rory understood as well was that creates microeconomies, and that gives us an opportunity to create economies of scale.
mm,
So we know that we've got to sell quite a lot of pies to pay the wages, for instance. So we do, but we make it hard on ourselves because we make, bake, and serve.
mm.
Uh, because we don't want any pie to be any less to be any more than an hour old, in essence. So they're not held, they're not frozen, they're not thingy. They're literally we pump them out, and I'm sure people think we've got some massive machine, but actually the machine that you see is pulling down the pie thing, and that's it. That's it. The lads on their right hand arm, honestly, they look like Popeye. So what, so we pull that down, and we and we everything, literally everything from pulling carcass out to is all done in that kitchen. Everything is handmade, homemade, and it's about serving food with nostalgia. And it's been really interesting, people with dementia that we've had through. It's so wonderful to see that the light goes on a little bit because they remember their mince and dumplings, or they remember, because we don't just do pies. I mean, pies is the backbone of the business, but we do food with nostalgia that's culturally appropriate to Sunderland or Tyneside or whatever. But um, it's a wonderful thing to see, and I'm very, very, very proud of it, and I'm proud of the team that I have there. I run it, as you know, I'm committed to fairness, so I run it as a collaborative and a cooperative. So everybody has a share, everybody has a bonus scheme, everybody gets paid significantly more than the living wage, not minimum wage, none of that. It's because what I want to do is I want to retain the people and make them feel valued. I want them to understand the ethos behind what we're doing and the food that we cook, and I also want them to understand that they can go and have experiences around the world that they live in, and come back with that knowledge to help the business. And if you give people that level of investment in them, it's not rocket science. Guess what happens? They feel wanted, they feel valued, they're able to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to do because they didn't have the money to do it. They work bloody hard, and you get a great team of people that understand an ethos. It's really that simple, and that comes out in the food, and people love it. They love it, and I'm very and I have to say the community in Sunderland and the city of Sunderland have been amazingly supportive, amazingly supportive. Um, they're a they're a great bunch. They really are a great bunch of people.
Would you do it elsewhere? Would you put it in Newcastle as well?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're local premises in Newcastle, but we've not really. I mean, part of the model that we have is that to pay the people to pay the people to pay our teams properly and the chefs properly and to give them a level of creative input and collaboration. We need to sell quite a lot of pies, so we need to
Really?
make sure that whatever deal that we strike is good for whoever we're renting the building from or the space from, but is also good for us. It's not it, the 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 thing is that what if you pursue quality through the application of excellence, what I mean by that is the skill set of the people that are around you,
Yeah.
then everything else comes. But as a business person, there's a huge risk in that. Um, so so we've just got to make sure that the deal is right, and that's the reason that we. And I didn't want to do it too quickly, but that's part of the reason that we haven't opened anywhere yet on Tyneside, because
You want to get it right in Sunderland before you get it right in for the Magpies, don't you? That's what.
no, exactly, and we know that we've got it right in Sunderland, and it's just that the Tyneside's just a bit slower on the uptake, like, and give us a building that we use.
I do believe that when you start with the people, and I know you've got to also have a sort of an ethos relating to the food, but when you start with the people and you not only get the right people, but literally every day you start to make sure those people are okay. Is everything all right? Are we all firing on? If there isn't something all right, what can we do? How can we help you? Do you need some support today? Do you want to? Do you want a day off tomorrow? Whatever it is, but you start with the people, and everything else follows. And I think that's where creativity is born. And I think when you're using local ingredients, seasonal ingredients, good food, creativity is an absolute must, but it becomes a joy. That becomes the joy of the actual thing, right?
Yeah. That's it. That's it right there. That's that because through food, you can taste the kindness, you can taste the care, and you can taste the love.
I
But you've
agree.
got to have, you've got to have the right people. I mean, there's an old Muslim saying you can tell when your wife or your husband's cross, because you can taste it through the food. Uh, That's the, it's an, and well, it's a very Arab thing to say that actually, but
That's
it's
so true.
so true. It's so true.
Well, so I want to offer my services as a hairy taster for anything you need.
Okay, you come up to Potter and we'll look after you. Come up with your son. And interestingly, Mark, my son is on the same trajectory as yours. He's a chef. My youngest son, my middle son's a restaurateur, and Alex is a great cook, but he's a tree surgeon. So if there's anybody out there who wants a tree surgeon, Kings are horticulture. Great.
Brilliant.
They're really good. Don't call them if you just bought a new car and there's a tree and you're parking it underneath a tree that a bird's shitting on your new car, because he'll tell you to sell the car and keep the tree. So he's a proper tree scientist. He's a very clever lad. So
Well, say, my son is so passionate about this, and he's so into that element of the career. I would love for Jordan to come and meet you, but also your son, and tell him, what he's done and how he's got there, because he's really grafted for it, and I am so so very proud of what he's achieved because. He's got the job he loves, and it's not many chef jobs on Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and that's what he's doing, and he loves it.
get it. Good for him. Good lad. And Dylan's on the same trajectory. He's doing his thing and he's learning his craft. And he's worked hard. He's worked hard, and it's good to see. As has James. He's a restaurateur. Got a fantastic local neighbourhood joint called Cantina. So all vegetable based, all plant based. Absolutely superb. Absolutely superb.
And the other thing that we should probably point out as well is, that, Mark Wogan does something very similar in London with the pizza. It's a similar process: quality goods, quality ingredients, Home Slice Pizza, by the way. I know you've had the pizza. I don't know if you've been to Home Slice, but you've had it.
Oh,
You've had the
I
pizza.
just popped in privately, and just went. I didn't. There was no because I didn't like the fanfare particularly. I'll just go. But yeah, I had the pizza Mark we did a little chat with Mark yonks ago, and I mean it's just brilliant. It's great. What
It's amazing. Yeah,
it,
I love it. I love it. And again, keep it simple. Pies are simple, but the product and the heart and the love and the flavor comes from the experts and the sourcing of the ingredients. It's not rocket science, is it? But it just seems to be that we've lost sight of that.
There's a mate of mine called Terry Laybourne who used to say it, and he's been my mentor for years, Terry, and he hates it when I say he's my mentor, but he is. And he said, listen, 90% of good chefing is good shopping. He said that the other 10% is the skill and the craft that you've learned.
Mm, so true.
Right.
Also, that stone trough in the corner, absolutely beautiful. That thing.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was a pain in the arse to put a kitchen round it, like, but it was.
I bet it was, but it's beautiful.
It's
Um, I've got a really hard question that I ask every person that comes on the podcast, and you're probably going to struggle the most to answer this question. In fact, you might not be able to answer it. Everybody else has answered it, so no pressure. And because of the nature of the podcast and who I am, what's your favorite pie? I have to say that lamb and Wensleydale one that Gary Eats had the other day looked amazing, and I would never have cheese in a pie.
That is really good. Well, we change it seasonally as well. So, um, there. Oh God. Uh. Oh.
Because the Americans all go sweet as well, whereas most Brits go savoury.
I think it's got to be. You know what it is actually, and then we do it as a special every now and then. We have steak and ale pie on quite regularly and we can't take mince and dumplings off the menu because if there is this, I mean, literally, there's riots. I don't, where's the mince and dumplings? I've come down for mince and dumplings. We're like, well, just here. We thought we'd have a change. No, what? You're good. It's nuts. I think probably Rosa did this. He goes, Kingy, I've got this, and it was steak and kidney, and it still is my favorite. But when we do a steak and kidney pie, man, it's like,
I can't do kidney.
oh, I love it.
I
Absolutely.
can't do kidney. I can't do mayonnaise. I'm not a massive fan of strong mustard, and I can't do whiskey. They're the 4 things I can't eat.
I think I'd shoot myself.
Oh, come on. It's not like there's another load of things.
Well, no. I don't. I could no. I mean, it's like I'm terrible like that though. I'm such a. Yeah. I think if there's any, there's no food that I really don't like.
Goat's penis.
Goat's penis wasn't the best. It wasn't the best, but there's other parts of the goat that is way more palatable.
Goat curry. Yes,
Goat,
please.
I mean, yes, dirty water. Come on, man. Oh, yes.
We're gonna have to wrap up, but I would love to have a school dinners conversation with you at one point as well because I loved school dinners, and I get the feeling to some extent there's an influence of school dinners on the proper pie menu.
Absolutely.
Do you do chocolate concrete with pink custard? Because that was my favourite.
Well, I would do that. Would do would do this every now and then. We'd probably need to do more desserts. And we do this. We do school cake and custard, and then we do
I saw that.
which is particular and to Sunderland. It's called the pink slice, and it
Oh, I
is
saw you got given one of those, and you were very excited. I don't know what they are. It's a bit like chicken parmo from Middlesbrough.
right from Middlesbrough. So it
Mm.
is. So basically, what they are is that two slices of shortbread. You've got like a jam sandwich and two slices of shortbread covered in pink icing and hundreds and thousands. If you're feeling a little bit avant-garde, and you can either serve that with custard or you can have it on its own. And literally, when me and the lads do a pink slice, it's like it's a proper pink slice like your granny used to make, you know. And we do it in shallows. We do it in. I think we we made 16 shallows, which are shallow gastros, because that's what you know. And I think, which is a lot of pink slices, and were put on the menu, and I'm not exaggerating. In an hour and 45 minutes, they were gone.
Jesus. The only problem with eating with a chef, though, like my Jordan, he'll come and he'll get one of everything. You're like, do you actually pay the bill here? Because I know I'm going to end up paying this bloody bill.
I
So my
agree.
15 pink slices and
They've got exactly that. That's exactly. And do you know what, Mark? I've just my lads are up now, but that never changes. It just gets more expensive.
well, I want to come and try Grandma Nancy's flat rib broth at some point because
Oh,
that sounds amazing.
gotta have that. That's a very old recipe from the Irish side of my family.
The other thing I've never tried is peas pudding.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very northeastern thing, though. It's not because I don't like it. It's just I've never tried it.
Never tried it. Honestly, you've
Mm.
got to try peas pudding, man. It's great. Well, you get yourself up the proper, and we'll sort you out.
Right, we'll sort it out. Defo. Okay. Si, before we finish, I want to say something to you personally. When I emailed you to ask if you might come on the podcast, I honestly didn't expect much. I thought I'd get an agent or I thought I'd get a secretary. Um, you didn't know me from Adam, and you replied the next day. Just you, your email, no agents, no secretaries, no middle people, and you said yes. You backed my horse when you didn't have to, and I will always be grateful for that. Over the past year, I've told so many people the same thing that the man that they see on television is exactly the man you are in real life. So thank you for saying yes to coming on my podcast, my little tin pot podcast, which I care about and I love and I want to help people with. Um, and if your adventures ever need a slightly rounder assistant who can't ride a motorbike but is extremely enthusiastic about pies and food, I would be honored to serve as your hairy taster. So thank you very much for joining us on Chewing the Crust with me, the Piety Man, Cy King. I owe you one.
Thank you, Mark. Well, you left a lasting impression on me as well, mate. So, and that's why I'm here.
And I purposely haven't asked you because I was not too embarrassed, but did you ever look at my book?
Yep,
What did you think?
it's really, it's heartfelt, it's warm, it's informative. Well, it certainly gives it gives food for thought and perspective, I think, and the most important thing when you're going through a rough time is perspective, and it's very and it's a difficult butterfly to catch. I think you've done it very well. It's a great book, really is.
Thanks,
And
mate.
well done, because it's good, mate. It really is good.
Well, there we are. That was Cy King. And what a way to mark the first anniversary of this podcast. A man who's travelled hundreds of miles, shared food across the continent, and yet remains one of the most grounded and generous people you could hope to meet. Now, the eagle eyed of those among you who are watching on YouTube will notice that I'm in totally different clothes, and it could even be a totally different day from when I did the interview. And the truth is that I was so excited at how it went and so chuffed that I disappeared off to tell my wife and forgot to come back and do the outro. So here we are. And if there's one thing that I take away from the conversation, it is that friendship, kindness, and laughter really do carry you a long way. Sometimes measured in years, sometimes measured in miles. Thank you so much for listening to this anniversary podcast. I really appreciate every single one of you who has done the same over the year, all of the guests who've joined me on the podcast as well. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please share it with someone who might enjoy it too. And if you're sitting somewhere with a brew or a slice of pie right now, you're doing it exactly right. Now, until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Spread the word about Chewing the Crust, and I shall see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.